Hello, my name is Gabby Carrasco, and I will be presenting my project on the Linguistics 36 African American English. For my project, I conducted a survey of 10 participants to answer the question, what does it mean to sound Black versus what is African American English? The majority of my participants were Hispanic, so in this case, I was able to focus on viewing how outside races view African Americans and what are their ideas about sounding Black. So in order to control for any potential discrepancies in the results, I controlled for gender, tone of voice, and I did as much as I could to control for content. For the first speaker, I used Malcolm X, and in his video, he essentially spoke about the oppression of Black people and the violence and mistreatment that they receive. In the second video, I used YG, and he essentially spoke about his experience of being involved in a shooting. So I feel that they were similar enough to be used in this study. For the results, 80% of my participants viewed Malcolm X as sounding Black, while 20% did not. Many of the main points that they stated were his tone of voice, his diction, and his topic that he was speaking about, but more specifically about the emotion that he had. For the second speaker, 100% of my participants stated that he sounded Black, many mentioning the fact that he had a deep voice, once again, and his overall word choice and vocabulary. But their main point was his use of curse words, more specifically the N-word. One of my participants stated that they didn't think a white man would say the N-word as comfortably and casually as he did, so it seemed very natural for him in his dialogue, so they assumed that it was a Black man based off of that. And interesting enough, one participant was the closest to any sort of analyzing and identifying phonological features, but they simply just said that the way he spoke reminded them of Black culture, as he said yo instead of your. So it was evident that there was ideas about pronunciation and the differences between Standard English and African American English, but the participants weren't aware of the actual differences. After listening to both clips, 60% of my participants stated that speaker number 2 sounded more Black compared to speaker number 1, and they once again stated pronunciation of words and his vocabulary and language, and more importantly, his use of the N-word. That seemed to be the point that drew them over to be confident about their answer. And for the implications, after receiving the results, I took it as people viewed a higher use of slang and curse words as sounding more Black, which to me represented an overall negative view and attitude towards African Americans. And even though that kind of language is appropriated into mainstream culture today, African Americans are still targeted solely and are consistently associated with more violence and aggression. Another point was Southern accents, and they are associated with Black people, perhaps due to the historical aspect about slavery being so prominent in the South. And the final point that stood out was that Black people are more authentic and expressive, which was seen through the emotions of when, more specifically Malcolm X, when he was speaking, he was very expressive and he had a lot of emotions and was passionate about the topic he was speaking about. And that related back to Black church activities compared to white people church, as in Black church, they're taught to be outgoing and expressive and be passionate about the love for God, while in white people church, they're taught to be more quiet and polite, even if it's fake, rather than when Black people, they're just overall more authentic in not only Black church, but in every other way. So it was just interesting to understand this survey and see how people lack the awareness of African American English. But I feel that it is necessary for people to learn, not only just to understand the dialect, but understand the culture as a whole. Thank you.